Let's face it, parenting is the most important job on earth. Every day presents a stack of different challenges, and more often than not, the answer is outside of the box. On this podcast, we will offer proven strategies, interview pioneers in education, give insights into how to be successful parents, and even share our imperfect experiences of being parents ourselves. We're all in on this journey, and we will span the globe to find out what is working and who has the answers. This is the Sound Foundations for Parenting podcast. Here are your hosts, Darren McCarthy and Brian Powers.
Welcome to the Sound Foundations for Parenting podcast. I'm Brian Powers.
And I'm Darren McCarthy.
Darren, today we continue to expand our international reach, going to England to speak with Sarah Seaman, Muddy Puddle teacher. She's the owner of Muddy Puddle Teacher. Really cool episode here.
Yeah, she came to us because, well, basically I was on LinkedIn and I saw the name Muddy Puddle and I said, well, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
And then I dove further into what she was posting, and it was, post after post about taking kids outside, putting the boots on, and bringing the curriculum outdoors. And boy, she really delivered, didn't she?
She absolutely did. Yeah, I mean, creator and owner of an educational publishing and training company, but all surrounded by utilizing nature, utilizing the outdoors, but also creating real social interaction for children outside of the classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to what we always talk about. Sometimes brilliance comes out of thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
And Sarah was talking about the kind of a student she was, and that she just was not a traditional kind of learner. She wanted to be hands-on, and she wanted to have this kind of input. So it didn't really work for her, and over time she just said, you know what, I'm going to do it myself. And
Yep.
And it's fantastic when somebody has a vision and it aligns with everybody else's thinking, but nobody has kind of the strength and motivation to make it happen like she did.
Yeah, I mean, and just her, she gives us a lot of great information in this episode, but just kind of her overarching theme of those 3 M's, mental strength, Mother Nature, and just moving, getting the kids moving, really resounded with me. And the fact that, just not worrying, we often, I find myself finding the excuses to not let them go outside and get dirty. And it can't happen that way. Like, just let them go. That's really what she talked about as well.
Yeah, and she said, I mean, what's the worst that can happen is, they get stronger mentally, if you address them properly.
Correct.
And you go out there as well, then they're gonna be engaged, and they're gonna need energy to get through the harder stuff, and this is where you get energy from.
Correct. Yeah, she talked about that and kind of her time as working with horses and stables and kind of being out in all kinds of elements and how it made her stronger, and how she's taking that to children, not only there in England, but across the globe, here in the States, Australia, really, just a resource of information, and happy to have her on. And what do you say? Let's get into the episode.
Let's do it.
All right.
Here we are with Sarah Seaman, the Muddy Puddle teacher.
So welcome to the podcast. Today we have a guest, Sarah Seaman from Muddy Puddle Teacher. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello.
It's great to have you. You're from England, correct? Sheffield?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Yes, England, Sheffield, yeah.
Right. We're definitely expanding our international reach. You're our second kind of international guest, so it's great to have you. Maybe give us a little bit of a background of, who you are and how you've gotten to, your business today with Muddy Puddle Teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically my journey started as a child, as everybody else's does. I was a very outdoorsy girl. I came from quite a poor background. Couldn't really afford much stuff, so basically what I did is I used to go out and just find my own fun, like I think a lot of people did, and I ended up working at my local stables, and I worked and looked out in order to get a horse ride, and that's what I basically did till I was about 19. I just spent my whole time outside horse riding and working hard to get a lesson and a ride here and there, so I just got used to being out in all weathers. And as I grew up, I did find education really hard. I was a practical learner, didn't really have much confidence in myself in regards to learning. So I went and did lots of practical courses. My mum really pushed me, and I went and did a degree, initially in multimedia, so it was nothing to do with education. I just didn't believe in myself, really. And while I was doing that course, I found out I was dyslexic, which helped a lot. So I knew I'd got some learning difficulties. And then I left what I was doing. I was doing multimedia. I went and worked in TV for about a year, and it was just not for me. It was just something I didn't really enjoy. I just found it a little bit intimidating living in London. And I ended up moving back to my hometown, Sheffield, and I retrained as a teacher. My dad was sort of like really behind me with that one, really wanted me to sort of get into teaching. He always believed in me in terms of my relationships with children. I'd always been involved. I was a nanny and babysitter, and I also used to teach young children horse riding. So he really pushed me, and I did it. And I didn't really look back, really. I did 12 years of teaching. And I was an assistant head, I was special needs coordinator, maths, did everything really, and absolutely thoroughly loved it. And then I had 2 young children, and I'd sort of done something called forest school. Do you have that in America? Have you heard of forest school?
Not familiar with that.
So it's really popular in England. I know some of the Americans are doing a bit of it, because I see that on my forums. But basically, it's like a holistic approach that encourages children to do a bit of bushcraft, really. So Australia do quite a lot of it. Fires, they use tools, they're risk-taking, things like that. So I'd had my young children, and then I sort of did this as part of my teaching. It was like my professional development, really. Sure. And I just thought, oh my goodness, it just gave me an absolute reality shock that we don't get out enough, and that we're not giving children this whole education, as in how to develop the whole self. You know, we are just teaching them maths and English and science, but we're not developing that person. So it gave me a big shock. But that particular approach, I felt, was a little bit tricky. So for a teacher to do anyway. So I was like putting tarps up, I was making fires, and at the same time I was trying to teach 30 children. So for me, it wasn't really that manageable. So I did something completely crazy, and I'd got 2 little girls anyway. So I was working part-time, but I basically said to my husband, look, I think I want to go and develop a new outdoor learning approach. And he was like, no way. But quite persuasive. And I don't think he really had much decision. So I just went and did it, and I went and worked outside for a whole year. I had lots of head teachers that supported me. And I worked in every year group. I took the national curriculum, and I basically just took it outside, and then I put it up on Facebook, and I just had like 35,000 people in like months just going, oh my goodness, this is just what we want. So it's gone from there, and really like to 3 years on now, we've developed the approach and really worked at it, and it's just become something really so super special, and something that's really affecting a lot of the people that engage in our training and whatnot, really, about the fact that how we used to play and how children play now is so different, and there's something missing in that. And I suppose my big word is balance. And that's what we're all about, is balancing really the modern world with the world that we used to live in, and trying to get the best approach possible for all of our children, education, parents, you know.
Yeah.
So that's my journey.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
So when you use the term a practical learner, is that what we would say is a hands-on approach?
Yeah, so like, you know, there's many different learner types, isn't there? But at the moment, worldwide, we only really cater for one type of learner, which is sort of the auditory learner, the person that can listen and then respond from that. We obviously have our whiteboards now, which are helping a lot, but some children really need to be practical, visual, and see things in context. Mm-hmm. And that can be a good 60% of your class. So for me, we've got to balance that, and we've got to, for some of those children, actually, all of the learner types are supported when they get outside.
Well, that's, you know, it's interesting because in our to work in the auditory intervention world, we're using music to help kids with learning challenges. And one of the things we always talked about is the importance of the auditory system, but also the visual system. And then over here, connecting it all together is the kinesthetic piece.
Yeah.
And so back in the 90s, there was a whole push for, whole learning.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I started getting my education. And, I thought when they were talking about whole learning that they were going to kind of incorporate the entire child, but then we kind of lost ourselves. Right. And so this, what you're bringing back, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's all about manageability, and the teachers couldn't manage it, and they're trying their absolute hardest, and they're aware of it. They're totally aware that there's all these learner types, but it's how do you manage it? And that's really what I focused on, is finding something that would cater for all those learner types, because there's always, you can always solve a problem, but it just takes a bit of time to come away from what you were doing, to really apply yourself, to find something good. And what's really sad is that we don't employ specialist teachers to go away and research this like you would do a scientist. Go away, research this, find a good approach, because we need one. And basically that's what I did. As crazy as it was, I just felt I was just compelled to do it. I really felt like this was really important to do. And for me, the platform is simply by going outside. I mean, we the one thing we also do is we only use natural resources, and that's another reason, is for manageability, connecting them with nature, environmental issues, sensory, all of that. I mean, my approach is really basic. Go outside and use natural resources. But that simplicity creates such diversity.
Yeah.
When you were exploring this space, were there other folks already doing this for years, or was it, did you have to navigate everything? Was it all kind of brand new?
No, well, there was forest school, and they were doing the sort of bushcraft stuff. So they were doing the fire and the tools and things like that. But as I was teaching that, my mind was just going, oh, but I could be linking the curriculum now. We could really be doing maths with sticks and stones. And I've always had that imagination in me. But it just went away. And I was just like, look, we can really apply this and make this into a real teaching approach. So no, and I think that's why it's been so popular, because, I mean, when does a teacher get a chance to just go and do what she really wants to do?
No, and I mean, here in the States, I mean, and I'm sure there too, kids don't get that approach until after school stuff, like Boy Scouts and going to, like with my middle guy, we just signed him up for a mad science program that goes for 5 or 6 weeks after school. And he came home like energized the other day.
Yeah.
But we're not getting that in the, 9 to 5, quote unquote, of the school day. And it's important.
Absolutely. And it's about their activity and their mental health and their physical, health. My child goes to school, and as much as I have a little input there, the schools in the UK aren't quite there right now. They're absolutely definitely trying, and our approach is helping. But as they move up through school, they could be sat in their seat from 9 till 3. They'll have an hour lunch break, which half an hour sat down for the dinner, and they've even got rid of their afternoon playtime recess, basically. They've got rid of it. So that could be for about 45 minutes those children are active in that day, and then they have an hour PE slot twice a week, which is not enough, is it? Especially if they're then going home and sitting on their iPads all night, which a lot of kids are. That's a lot of sitting down for small young children.
Yeah, I don't think in the consideration of curriculum, they realize that a few minutes on your feet getting dirty, so to speak, is going to actually give you that much more energy and give you that much more attention. Are you seeing, how do the kids react to this?
Absolutely. I mean, it totally engages them, and all you need to do is go out there and just give it a go, and you'll see. I mean, part of my job is to get the teachers to monitor this and show progress and show how it's impacting on them. We have a big assessment that the teachers do to show how much of an impact this is. It completely engages them. All year groups it does. It's not easy at first, because we've always told children, when you go outside, you play. You go outside, you play. We've not actually told them when we go outside, there's lots of learning to be done there. So at start, they are just used to going out there and doing their own things. So that does have to be supported. But eventually, they start looking up and looking around, and you're like, hey, we're doing maths, we're doing 3D shapes with sticks. Oh my goodness, like their imagination just goes away with them. And then we're talking about where this stick came from and what tree it came from, and deciduous and evergreen trees, and loads of cross-curricular links come in, and they're engaged and they're loving it. And, you know, even right up to the 11-year-olds, they're like, just cannot wait to go out and do muddy schools. They're just so excited about it. And little do they know, it's a science lesson that, you know, they did indoors the other week that they found really boring.
Correct. Yeah. Or we brought kind of the outdoors inside in those. I remember those kind of crazy examples of, you know, pieces of trees and, you know, animals that had been stuffed. And it's like, wait, why are we not outdoors looking for this stuff during science? And here we are indoors looking at it. It just didn't make sense at the time.
Yeah. It's just like what you're saying. We've gone inside out, and what we should be doing is going outside in.
Yeah.
Especially like if we want to help environmental issues and whatnot, you know. I mean, when we're out there doing our teaching, we're using nothing but natural waste. We're not using glue sticks, we're not using pens, we're not using electricity. We're just out there using what nature's given us, and it costs nothing. So parents can easily do this at home too, and
Sure.
Many do. We have many home educators doing this, and parents.
So are you integrating it into public schools?
So yeah, so we have like state and private here in England, and yeah, basically we've got about 90 schools doing it now.
Wow.
But there could be even more, because I set it up as an approach. I'm not a money making person. I'm here for the kids, and if they want to use the approach for free, they can. If they need my support, I'm here for them. So we train schools, they can do it online. It's all really cost effective and manageable, and it's just whatever they want to take on board. And many schools, like I say, do it for free. They just take what we show them and give them examples of on our social media, and go from there.
Sounds like you're starting a revolution over there, Sarah.
That sound like anti.
Yeah, anti-revolution. Wow.
So what, from a practical standpoint, I know you just finished a training today.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Are you actually outside, and you know, and you're? Can you give us an idea of like?
So we're all about balance. So we don't expect them to go out there the whole day. You know, they might want to, but we don't expect that. When I turn up, I spend the first hour telling them about setting it up, safety, you know, all the nitty-gritty that we've got to do in this day and age, making sure that this approach is safely set, that they're going to engage the parents and get the parents involved so they're fully aware of this approach, because it'll be all new to them as well. And then once we've spoke about that, and clothing is a big thing as well, making sure that the children are dressed appropriately so that they can get outside and just roll around in the mud if that's what they want to do. That's really important, because we're trying to remove those barriers so kids can go outside and just be them. And then after that, I take them outside, and you know, they some of them will be like, oh, you know, it's a bit cold out there. I mean, we're in February now in the UK, so it's like 2 degrees outside today. So to them out, and they just forget. They forget that it's cold, and they're so busy interacting with each other. That's what's great about being outside, is we're not sat around tables. We are actually really quite physically close to each other, and we have to pass each other things, and they've got the space to move around if they are a bit socially uncomfortable. You've got that space to move around people and connect, and it's just, they're just laughing and they're having a great time. And at the same time, I'm showing them how to, you know, get the Vikings outside, or, you know, Victorians, or the Fire of London, and all sorts of different topics, under the sea, bears, you know, whatever we've been talking about today. They all know how to do that, and they're just out there having a great time, just using.
Fantastic. So Sarah, Brian and I are both parents, and it is the middle of February, but our children want to go outside. Do you have some practical tips for us, or there's a couple of things we could do?
Yeah, so basically you've got to work to your weathers and work to your seasons. So what is the weather like now this week for you guys?
We're having a similar, we're having similar to you, but not as cold. This is winter for us, but
it's just sunny and cold.
Yep, it's kind of unseasonable.
So beautiful weather basically, but it's cold. So
it is cold.
The big thing is that you've got to move. So we work to the 3 M's, which is mental strength, Mother Nature, and moving. And they're all the 3 things we think about when we get outside. And it helps us to structure to get the best out of being outside, because it's really easy, even as a parent, you know, especially if you're a teacher, but it's really easy for our inside teacher to come outside. And what we want is a different experience when we're outside now. Inside, we've got technology, we've got stuff. Outside, we're using our imagination, we've not got much. So basically this time of year, you've got to get them moving. There's all sorts of things you can do. If you've got young kids, get them to go and get sticks, collect them all, count them. You can put leaves on them if you want to get some maths involved, pierce some leaves over them and count them, take them off, count them in 2s. If you've got older children, count them in 10s. Go around the trees and look at the bark and the sensory experience you've got. And there's so much science out there, isn't there? I mean, do you actually know what the trees are around you? There's a really good app called iNaturalist, which is really handy. And if you take pictures of the nature around you, it'll tell you what it is. You can just take a picture of the bark, or you can take a picture of the leaf, and it'll tell you what it is. And that's great for them, because they've got to know what trees are, and that, you know, they're deciduous and evergreen. What's poisonous? You know, we have kids in the UK that have you got nettles? Have you got nettles in America? We have this plant and it stings, and it's called a nettle. And out where we were younger, we absolutely knew what that was, because we got stung all the time. But kids today are not aware of it, even though it's still here, still popular, it's still growing. Don't know what it is, just run into it. So yeah, absolutely knowing what you've got around you, talking about your wildlife, but just linking it. I think communication is so important. And I think with what technology has done is removed a bit of that from us. So get out there, get moving, get them to run to trees and back, and can you find a deciduous tree and come back, and get them talking.
One of the things that struck me is when we started talking was you had mentioned the importance of the language of the parent when it comes time to going outside and having the energy and like, you know, inspiring them, so to speak, because we say some things sometimes that you know, is embedded in the child, and it's not necessarily the right thing.
No, and it's a bit of what's probably come from our parents and then their parents, and it's just, you know what it's like. Yes. You sort of like get older and you say stuff and you go, oh my God, I only say that to me. Isn't it? But yeah, we've just got to be really mindful of it now, because when we were younger, we did go out, even though, despite our parents said these sort of phrases. But now our children are staying in more, so we've got to be very mindful of what we're saying, such as, don't get your shoes muddy, don't go outside, don't get your shoes muddy, you know, and they're thinking, right, I can't go outside, I can't get my shoes muddy, I'm going to make my mum mad. And we get a lot of that in schools, them saying, I can't get my coat messy, miss, so I can't go out. And I go, I'll deal with you, mother. Go on, get yourself out. Not a problem. You know, and it's things like, oh, we're not going out because it's raining. We're not going out because it's raining and it's cold. And it's like the kids are thinking in their head, I don't care. You know, I don't care if it's cold or if it's wet. I want to go out. Yeah. I mean, what I do with my girls is I just go, the door's open. If you want to go out, guys, go. But just make sure you wear appropriate clothing. What are you going to wear? You know, we're going outside. It's raining. What are you going to wear? Nothing. Well, we're going to have to rethink that one then, aren't we, girls? You know, think about it. We've got to wear a rain mask, because you might want to go out in nothing, girls, and just your little T-shirts, but you're not going to be able to stay out as long. If you want to stay out for longer, then go and get the appropriate clothing on, and you'll be able to stay out for longer. So it's just having conversations with them. Then they're very intelligent.
I'm definitely writing that down and using it, because I am guilty of the, hey, you know, those are your school sneakers or your school shoes, don't get those dirty. And my middle guy is absent-minded as the day is long, so he will, you know, he'll be the one that comes in all muddy and you know, jackets done and that kind of stuff. But it's a matter of giving them the right things to use and setting them up for success without scolding them.
Sarah, you had mentioned there were three things that you had mentioned, and I didn't have my pencil. I should have. Yeah. One of them was mental toughness.
Yeah, I think when I was developing this approach, these three things are what stood out to me as what is the great thing about being outside. One of them is the mental strength. I mean, you do not understand how important it is just to step outside on your mental strength. The wind against your face, the rain on your skin, it just brings you alive. And it just having the natural space around you is just so good for your well-being. And there's so much research about now to suggest it. Us being cooped up we weren't meant to be in buildings, and thank goodness we have. I am glad. I do love my heating when it's cold out there.
Right.
We weren't meant to be in them all of the time. We are supposed to go outside and explore the outdoor space in all weathers. So mental strength is an important one of mine, and I do make sure that the teachers focus on that, because when we're outside, I don't want the children to be stressed. I want them to have that space to be what it is. So I try and prevent my teachers from doing competitions. I don't tell them not to. It's entirely up to them, because every school parent is different. But I try to take some of those inside stresses away. So maybe competitions, star of the weeks, ranking children on charts. I'm a bit against that. The sort of like, well, we've got this awful thing that's going around schools at the minute in the UK, which is the traffic light system. If they're naughty, they go on a red. It's just awful.
Same.
I hate it.
We have it here.
So for me, I've been quite. I'm never firm, because I do believe in flexibility, but I do try and encourage them that, hey, let's just have this outdoor space time, and we don't do all that crap on the inside. Where we just chill out a bit. We chill out a bit, and there's nobody on a rank or a whatever, or just outside working together, having fun, making stuff out of nothing.
And there were two other things right after the mental strength.
Moving. So it's a big thing. I mean, we've got a huge obesity issue in the UK. So getting our children to move as much as we can is very important to us. So again, that supports their mental well-being as well. So just trying to get them move as much as we can. So when I get the teachers to plan for activities, or even when I'm out there with my own children, we have the space, don't we? We're always telling them inside, use your inside voices, don't run around the school, When we're outside, I want them to move. I want to see kids moving. It makes me feel great. I know kids naturally should be moving a lot more than what they do, so let them move. Create active games, make it busy. And then the last one is mental strength, moving, and then Mother Nature. We absolutely have got to get our kids connected with Mother Nature, which is, for us, it always happens because we're always using natural resources. So we use sticks, stones, bamboo sticks, and clay and leaves. They're our main resources of how we create our lessons. But they're just so sensory. It connects them. There's lots of natural healthy fats in mud and stuff like that are apparently really good for allergies and whatnot. So 3 massive benefits really to our approach. Yeah.
Excellent. What a great program. I know we could certainly use that here. We've been wondering what to do with our property out back, and now I don't have any more excuses. It's time to get going.
I feel guilty whenever my kids aren't outside now. It's one of those things. You know how important it is.
And I have to give you credit. I know I mentioned it before we got on the call, but that outdoor suit that you have on your website is pretty cool, and will be a resource. To basically show the kids, like, hey, this is what you use when you're going outside and getting muddy and playing.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's just about, it's just like clothes and looking cool and all of that. It's just such a harsh pressure, especially on the teenagers. And it's like sometimes, we've just got this, I've been looking for that suit for years, honestly. I've always wanted one of those suits, because I get absolutely sick of having to put on all these different layers of stuff when I'm going outside. So it's just basically a massive onesie, isn't it?
It's like an old school snowsuit. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just get it on and get outside. It means I can kneel on the floor, and I can get to the children's level and actually interact with them, and it can make a massive difference to your teaching if you can be comfortable too. It's important you're comfortable as much as the children. Otherwise, you'll stand outside there and go, I want to go inside. I want to go inside. I want to go inside. We don't want that.
No.
We want the adults to be comfortable too.
Yeah.
So Sarah, what do you have available for people if they want to get started, for parents and professionals that want to get, they want to get dirty?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a website, www.themuddypuddleteacher.co.uk. So we do sell worldwide. We have online training, so anyone across the world can access that training. So we do have people in America, Australia, Canada, all doing that training. And basically, we're just giving you on natural resources. That's our approach, as well as inspiring you and giving you lots of ideas. And people are just loving it. They're just loving it. And you get to hear my story on the way as well. So it's there to sort of support you in your journey. And support your well-being. So we have the online training, and then we sell lots of subscriptions, so you can subscribe to all our resources, and they're all so really different. You know, we do like circle time outside, muddy yoga, muddy mindfulness, as well as muddy maths. We might be doing one more, one less. It might be upper school, and you might be doing lots of multiplication, formal calculations. I mean, there's not much I can't get outside, if I'm perfectly honest. So yeah, we provide all of that, as well as lots of free support as well on our Facebook. So it's Muddy Puddle Teacher on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter is Muddy Teachers, and we also have a YouTube channel as well where we model lots of things. And on our website, www.themuddypuddleteacher.co.uk, we've also got a free subscribers area that will just give you an abundance of support and help. But I can't recommend enough to go on our Facebook group, which is just Muddy Teachers, Muddy Parents all over the world. They're just so incredibly supportive to each other on there. Cool. So yeah, we have all that on offer for you.
Yeah, and we'll definitely include that in the show notes for this episode. So if, you know, our folks are driving or not being able to write things down, don't worry, we got you covered. And make sure, you know, you download the notes that come with this episode. So Sarah, thank you very much. We really appreciate. We're really happy to have you on. And again, we'll, like I said, to conclude all these good nuggets of information that you've given us in the show notes, and we'd be happy to have you on again.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Anything we can do to help, it's okay. You know.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm putting my boots on, putting my jacket on, and I'm getting my kids right now.
Get outside. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.
Take care.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Sound Foundations for Parenting podcast with your hosts, Darren and Brian. Find them on social media at Sound Foundations for Parenting. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And we'll catch you next time on the Sound Foundations for Parenting podcast.